Mandy, you want to, oh, sorry, Dr. Hester, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Sure, fantastic. All right, please stand for the pledge. Flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Everybody have a chance to look at the agenda?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So can I have a motion to approve it?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstains? Good job, got the first part done. So now the second part is items for information. So who's doing the budget? Is it me? It's gonna go quick if it's me.
Who's doing the budget? It's all you. Your clicker's up there.
All right.
Do you want me to stand it right here? No.
All right. In the interest of time, we're going to just assure you that we are cognizant of the fact that we need to present a budget that meets the ideals and beliefs and values of the school division, so that our assurances are there. Our focus continues to be on safety and maintaining an environment that's conducive to learning. So you'll see some expenditures in our budget that are new in the fact that we are continuing with our Zero Eyes initiative, where we have artificial intelligence to look over our facilities, the grounds, to alert administration if there were a threat. So that is a new expense that you'll see in this budget. K-12 literacy and addressing the learning loss that we have experienced that continues to filter through until we get the cohort that was from the 2020 school year and 2021 through their education. Best practices for excellence in teaching and learning, of course, that we are following the Virginia Literacy Plan and enacting all of the requirements thereof, making sure that we use research-based strategies to enhance education in the classroom. Social and emotional learning supports. I think we've all read the news lately and realized what a need this is in for our young people in our schools and in our communities. So we do have additional emphasis in that area as well. Career exploration and readiness. We want to make sure that our kids are ready to enter the world of work when they leave us, and so we are directing funds in that regard as well. And again, a budget is just a plan, so you'll see our budgeted goals and our assumptions. We don't know exactly where the future holds, especially with the changes in the political arena and the impact that federal budget cuts could have on us. So we're using our crystal ball to the best of our knowledge today and preparing a budget for you, though we do want to alert you that it is subject to change. You'll see the proposed expenditures for the division, the revenues, the enrollments, the employee demographics, and some division comparisons, and then some of our maintenance and transportation needs. Student success, we do prioritize individualized instruction, that we know that no two kids are alike, so we do try to meet the kids where they are and provide what they need. Diversified courses, it is a struggle for us. It becomes a bigger and bigger struggle the smaller our enrollments get to be able to offer the variety of courses that we offer. But we are still trying to maintain an array of courses that meets the needs of everyone. Career readiness, we want to make sure that we're offering the career paths that students want to take or to be involved in, but also are those that the job market is asking for. Safe environment, again, talking about all of the myriad of safety features that we put into the division to make sure that our staff and our students are safe while they're on our facilities. Operational excellence, we do stress among our department heads that they need to provide us a budget of need, not a budget of frills. It is what they need to be successful in their workplace. An efficient use of resources, we looked to find the values whenever possible for bulk purchases and shopping around to various different vendors and utilizing cooperative procurement contracts to be able to find value for the division. Highly qualified workforce and maintaining and retaining a qualified staff. It's harder and harder in today's environment to be able to attract qualified workers and to be able to retain them. So we'll talk a little bit about the struggles that we've had this past year and some things that we're trying to do to correct that moving forward. Community engagement, ways that we reach out to the public. The video streaming that we now do for board meetings, our app, our website, Aptigee, Facebook, any numerous ways that we reach out to try to get the word out of all the wonderful things going on and to inform and update folks on the happenings of the school division. When we built the budget, we built it using the governor's budget, that we do have some raw numbers from the House and Senate that we'll share as well. We used a projected school enrollment of 1417, very similar to the enrollment that we have currently and not too different from what the state is predicting for the school division. Sometimes those numbers are way off. This year it's fairly close. It's only 8 or so difference. We're predicting a 15% increase in health insurance premiums. That is just a prediction. We should be getting those numbers any day now. I sent an email to our rep hoping that I'd have an update for tonight, but have not heard back. I understand that a neighboring division had a 25% increase, so I expect it will be high. I'm hoping that the 15% is enough. Property and automobile insurance, I'm hoping will remain constant. We don't foresee a reason for them to go up, though everything is going up because of wildfires and floods and all the like, that the whole insurance market is going up, but not necessarily for things that have happened in Nelson County. We're not planning for major equipment failures. Most of the oldest equipment, I guess, is at the high school, and that will be replaced or is being replaced through our renovation project. So we're hoping that the other schools will be okay for the coming year. Federal grants, we're predicting them to be stable, thinking that the awards that they're making now would be for the following year. So we don't know what the impact is going to be from DOGE and the ramifications that spread out from other entities being affected, but we could foresee that the state budget would be hit because of the state workforce being heavily weighted with federal workers, but also that would affect sales tax, that would affect lottery proceeds, and those things indirectly will impact our budget. So be mindful of that. The challenges that we faced is that inflation continues to grow. Last 12 months, it was 2.9% overall. The difficulty finding workers, classified and professional staff, we have positions that have been unfilled for the whole year of this past year. And we had to go out and contract workers at a higher cost because it was mandated services that we needed to provide. So that is a challenge that we're trying to look for innovative strategies to overcome. The enrollment decline that we have seen over the last, 7 or 8 years are reaching the high school, which is the most difficult age group to make staffing adjustments because it affects whole sections of classes. Like it could be a whole program instead of one third grade classroom. It could be a whole CTE offering, for example, or a whole advanced course offering if you don't have enough kids signed up for it. So we're looking at those class enrollments closely. State mandates, the uncertainty of funding streams moving forward, unfunded mandates. I know that we've heard that phrase over and over, but this particular budget season also had some state mandates that could possibly be input. So those things might need to hit our budget moving forward, so we'll be looking at those. For the major differences in the coming budget, the governor's budget included a 3% raise for SOQ positions. When we presented our budget, we looked at where our current salaries stood in comparison with our neighbors. And so we took the approach that we were going to do yet another year of targeted salary increases on our teacher scale. So the overall, the increase was 3%, but folks at the beginning of the scale were either at 0 or 0.5%. Folks at the middle to end were 4 to 4.5 to 5%. So overall, the average was 3%, and it moves us closer to being where the school board has indicated to us that they wanted to be at 25 across all the steps on the teacher scale. And we'll see what last year's implementation of that strategy did a little while longer in the presentation. Support staff and bus drivers their scales were increased for 3%, but that does include a step increase. And administrators were about 2.61% overall. Safety, we put a primary interest on cybersecurity. We have heard the recent news stories with Power School and with other school divisions being hit, that we are looking to beef up our networks, to beef up our training of staff so that folks are aware of all of the different vulnerabilities that are within our technology arena, between phishing schemes, scammers, malware, you name it. We just want to make sure that we're doing all that we can to avoid a problem so that we don't have to react to fix one later. Again, health insurance is at 15%, and we're hoping that's enough. For staffing, based on what we're predicting for our kindergarten enrollment, it looks like we're going to need to add one elementary teacher, and that's just to maintain the ratios to be able to continue to participate in the reduced K-3 initiative. So they have minimum and maximums for class sizes, and we need to fit in that ratio. We also would like to reinstate the assistant principal position that we had reduced out of last year's budget. We're finding that in today's environment that we really need that additional administrative support at the elementary level, so we have included that. And then last year, due to an influx of special ed, early childhood special ed students, we had to take the teacher that was at the middle school in adaptive PE and move that person to early childhood special ed. Now we have kids that are in an age-appropriate setting would be at the middle school, so we need to have that program back at the middle school, but we still have an influx of early childhood students. So we need to add a special ed self-contained teacher at the middle school. So they were the three positions that were being asked for. Two of them are almost non-negotiable. The third one is very much needed. Overall, this is the governor's budget and all the changes that he included in the budget statewide. And it's really small and I can't read it, so I'm going to leave that for you to read on your own. But again, that would not necessarily, all of those programs impact Nelson County, but it is his overall broad look at education K-12 in Virginia. So our budget is recommended to be $33,817,244, to be composed of 10.8% from the state, 3.6% sales tax, 3.5% federal, 28.1% local, and to be determined 3.1%. Our shortfall between all of our budget is $2,071,178. That $2 million includes a big chunk of money for school buses, something that we've not included in our regular budget before. Well, in a number of years. We used to include them in the budget when we leased buses, but when we went to buying them, we moved them to the county's capital improvement program. We've gotten to the point now where our buses need to be replaced, and we don't really have choices to delay them, so we need to include them as an operational expense. And so we included 4 buses at $150,000. I'm sure it's no surprise to you, but 64.7% of our budget is in instruction, where it should be spent actually working for kids in the classroom. But that's almost an anomaly because technology is also instruction. And so you add that 4.8, you're at 69.5. Food services is at 4.2% of the budget, maintenance 9.7, transportation 10.9, and administration 5.1. Salaries and benefits make up over 80% of our budget, 56.7% in salaries and 24% in fringe benefits, puts you to 80.7%. Purchase services at 4.2%, utilities 3.3%, materials and supplies 6.7%, and capital outlay 2.3%. If you look at our total budget, $29,123,218.77 is non-discretionary, and so we really only have 13.9% that is discretionary, which is $4,697,892.29. So if you look at a budget summary of how did we get to the $2,071,178 deficit, we had a decrease in total revenue of $373,158, decrease of state revenue of $142,686, and a decline in federal revenue of $230,472. The changes in expenses went up for salary enhancements of $750,747.26, fringe benefits of $183,737.97, which would be all of the VRS, the group life insurance, the retiree health care credit, the group life, the Virginia long-term disability program. They all count into fringe benefits. Those 3 positions, including fringe benefits, were $319,854.69. Health insurance at $222,634.77. Joint operations, which is the cost that we have to pay to participate in the Piedmont Regional Educational Program, is going up $66,147.79. Capital outlay, it says only $292,605.02. You would think that it would be at least $600,000 because we have buses there, but last year in our budget we had included 300 and some thousand, I believe, for switches in our network, and so we took those out, and so the net is $292,605. Purchase services, $94,203.73. Again, we're having to contract labor for certain skilled positions that we used to have a person doing, so that's why our purchase services went up. Expenditures that are decreasing, materials and supplies of $228,802.96, and just some miscellaneous line items, 3,108.27. So you take your revenue shortfall plus your expenditure increase, that equals the 2,071,178. Again, the composite index is a big part of our story as to why Nelson gets less as a percentage of state aid than our neighbors do. With the exception of Albemarle and Charlottesville, I think we are the highest in our target group. Health insurance rates, I thought it was good to show you where we've been in health insurance. We've been very lucky. Sometimes you forget that. But over the last 5 years, our health insurance has only averaged a 2.4% increase. So it may be time to pay the piper, I'm not sure. We're fingers crossed until we get those numbers. But we have been fortunate over time to avoid some big increases. I talked about some positions that have been unfilled. Custodian 1. There are 4 current vacancies. I think we've advertised, we've been unsuccessful in finding candidates. That continues to be a challenge. We'll keep looking, and I think personnel has some questions that they'd like to ask you in that regard in terms of things that we could do possibly. High school mathematics teacher since August 12th, high school English teacher since October 10th, and the speech pathologist is the position that we had to contract out to provide mandated services. I guess this is a sobering statistic from the Virginia Education Association that after 5 years on the job, 40% of our teachers are no longer teaching in Virginia schools. And then according to the Economic Policy Institute, teachers in Virginia earn 67 cents on the dollar compared to other non-teacher college-educated workers. They assert that Virginia's teacher wage penalty is the worst in the nation. This is a list of critical shortage teaching positions in Virginia. It used to be you would see things like special ed would be there, math would be there, but you never would see elementary education. And that was one that, there used to be a sufficient supply and even an abundance of supply of elementary teachers, and now that's on the critical shortage list. So that tells you how the landscape has changed. This graphic just gives an idea of why people are leaving their profession. There's some old folks like me that are leaving for retirement. There's some that are leaving due to school staffing issues. Some to pursue another job. That's 34%, so that's a third. Family or personal, those are the ones that you really can't do a whole lot about because of family life issues. But the one that is the most concerning is the highest one, the 48%, that there's just dissatisfaction. And so trying to get to the root of that dissatisfaction and then what can a division do to reward teachers to the fact that they are intrinsically satisfied to stay in the position. And not just teachers, and that probably should be why school workers or why any worker is leaving their chosen profession, because I know transportation has issues, maintenance has issues, custodians have issues, so it's something that we do need to look at. Teacher pensions, I do believe that the General Assembly is setting aside some money to put towards VRS. But it is important that as people, the baby boomers are going to be phasing out, that there is sufficient money to pay the benefits that have been promised to them moving forward. So the Virginia retirement system still is underfunded, though significant gains have been made, and there have been modest improvements in terms of performance, but also the General Assembly has put money into the fund to make it more equitable in terms of the unfunded liability moving forward. VRS did set rates for the biennium, and so we need to be mindful moving forward because of the hybrid plan that they have auto escalation every 3 years, that we budget for those funds, especially on those auto escalation years, because it's no longer a set rate for everyone. Now it depends on the individual person and what they're choosing to invest for their own retirement. So it is going to vary depending on the person and what option they take. Consumer Price Index, again, it rose 2.9% for the 12 months ending in December. I understand that it is even higher now, so the 3% raise is keeping up with inflation barely, if it is now, if you look at January's numbers. Per pupil spending summary, this is just for raw data. If you take all of our expenses divided by all of our students, the cost would be $23,865.38. If you take the expenses just for regular ed students and divide it by the total number of students, it would be $20,594.17. And if you take just the special ed costs and divide it by our 263 special ed students, the cost goes up to $38,218.93. So those extra services do come at a cost. Factors that drive up our per pupil cost: small class sizes, competitive salaries and seniority of staff, the geography and topography of the locale, our at-risk student populations, the number of special education students and required accommodations, school improvement and facility enhancements and repairs, energy costs, the size and age of schools in the division, the size and age of our transportation fleet, the extracurricular offerings that we afford our students, the number of academic pathways and course offerings. And then every time we apply for a grant and we incur those expenses, that drives up our per pupil costs, but we don't want to stop applying for grants because we want to give our students everything that we possibly can. So just to understand that it does affect our per pupil expenditures. Thought we would take a look at our student enrollments from 2017 to current. So our fall membership reports that we do every September shows that in 16-17 we were at 1860, and in 24-25 we had dropped down to 1443. So a change in one student would equal $4,256 in state revenue, and an $8,426 change in required local match under the governor's proposed budget. The good thing to note there is that since 22-23, we've been relatively stable, 1439, 1447, 1443. So hopefully the decline is stopped. The change in the number of live births from 2007 to 22, which is the most recent information that we have. Nelson is a yellow county, and so the change in births, it declined from 0 to 10%. So, which explains why our numbers have dropped. Projected funding enrollment for next year, including pre-K, which doesn't count in our funding formula, we should be at 1486.25. So if we take out, we have the 1486.25, we subtract out the 49 pre-K students and the 20 out-of-county placements that we have, that would bring our enrollment down to the projected 1417.25. special ed populations over the years. That has stayed relatively stable. From 16-17, we're at 249, 278, 273. And the biggest change that we can see is 23-24, we had 229, but then it jumped up to 263 in 24-25. So that was a significant increase at the very last year. This population has seen significant growth. Our English language learner students, 16-17, we had 42 students, and in 24-25, that number has doubled to 84. Between 24 and 25, there's been a 25.37% increase in ELL students. Having teaching vacancies isn't a Nelson County phenomenon, unfortunately. It is a statewide, nationwide phenomenon. You'll see these were the numbers that we received at the beginning of the year, that for all teaching positions, there were 21% unfilled. Special ed, 23% unfilled. ESL, 25% unfilled. The colleges aren't putting out enough graduates. Hopefully, with changing the requirements that you no longer have to have the master's degree, you can have the bachelor's degree, that maybe that pipeline will replenish itself. There are also some innovative programs that allow folks to go through alternative licensure to be able to come and take a teaching position while they're working on credentials. And again, this is reiterating that according to the Economic Policy Institute, teachers in Virginia earn 32.7 less in weekly wages than other non-teacher college-educated workers. Governor Youngkin's budget proposal with the 3% did make an increase or an improvement to the teacher pay, but it still didn't do everything that needs to be done to bring it to the national average and to be comparable with other states. The House and Senate have both proposed, in addition to the 3%, a 1% bonus. One wants to do it in June, which would be this fiscal year. The other wants to do it in September, which would be next fiscal year.
They may have settled on June.
They settled on June? Okay.
I think they may have settled on June.
All right, so if that's the case, we would be getting additional funding for SOQ-funded positions and would be working to find the matching funds to be able to do that for other personnel that aren't SOQ-funded in this year's budget.
And that will take September, or September.
Is that?
Yes.
Is that, you have to take the, whatever it's called, the LCI into account for that? Because I heard there was like a bonus or something that was not.
Yeah.
Wasn't subject to the
Yeah.
LCI.
I think a $1,000 bonus for us is about $350,000 is what it would cost us, and I think we would get about $160,000. So we'd have to come up with the $190.
I thought, well, at least one proposal was that there was
The
no
local match.
required local match.
Yeah, no required local match, and only SOQ funded positions.
Oh, so it still would be less than we needed to give.
With the
to everybody.
flexibility to be able to say, we'll take, you can say 500
Right, right.
for everyone,
Mhm. Okay,
stratify it if you want to. So
Right.
there is the flexibility, but there's no match.
okay.
And again, this having worked in personnel for quite a while, this is probably one of the biggest deterrents for folks that want to come to Nelson is the lack of affordable housing because they have nowhere to live. Until we can solve that problem, we're going to still struggle trying to bring teaching positions, which are some of our higher paid positions, but much less support positions to the county. Taking a look at the seniority of our staff, you can see that the tides have changed. Very heavily weighted for new teachers, 39 with 0 to 5 years, 22 at 6 to 10, 18, 11 to 15. When you look at the bottom of the scale, 7 over 30, 10 over 26 to 30, and 17, 21 to 25. We have 143 teachers in the division. When, I don't know if it was when I started, but I know we were close to 180 at one time. So we have adjusted our staffing based on the number of students that we had and done that without having to do reductions in force. We've done it through attrition. So when we were looking at this scale last year, I believe our beginning teacher scale was 3rd. So we've lost some ground. Now they're 9th in the state rankings. Year 5, they're at 10th. Year 10, they're at 19. Year 15, they're at 40. Year 20 at 52. Year 25 at 59. And year 30 at 53. So we've made some significant gains to try to average that to 25 across all the different steps. And what we're proposing for next year would be that we would be over from steps 0 through step 15, and step 20, 25, and 30 still be under, but not as much as we used to be. So we still have work to do, and we're not going to fix it in a year. It'll be a multi-year process, but the goal will be for that last column to be 0 all the way down. This chart shows our target market that we would likely lose teachers to if we would lose them. The green indicates the division is exceeding the level of pay that Nelson County pays. Red indicates that we're paying teachers at a higher level than the comparison markets. So you'll see Albemarle and Charlottesville, are leading the pack. Green has some years there towards the middle to the end where they're a little better than we are, but to the south of us, we're doing a pretty good job of competing. In terms of our teaching staff, we have 4 with technical licenses, which are our CTE professionals, 53 with bachelor's degrees only, 84 with a bachelor's and master's degree, 2 with bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, 15 administrators with master's degrees, and 2 with a doctoral degree. Again, the FTE positions since 2017, we were at 160 in fiscal year 17, down to 142 estimated in fiscal year 26. The enrollments by school, Rockfish in 2017 was at 350. Currently it's 308. Tie River 437 to 326. Middle school 448 to 321. But look at the high school, 625 to 482. So that's where the biggest drops are occurring. The Weldon Cooper Center has put out their population projections for fiscal year 24-25. They had 1435. For next year, 1416, which is pretty close to our 1417 that we're budgeting. And then it goes 1406, 1391 to 1377. Hopefully that will be the low point. Student transportation needs. We have those 2 electric buses that are used en route. Happy to see how they're going to affect the fuel use and maintenance costs, but we do have them using now. Price of diesel as of December the 11th was $2.33 a gallon. The price of gas was $2.05 a gallon. We have 3 routes or vans and cars which exceed 200,000 miles that are used daily. We would welcome any surplus vehicles that any other county agency or anyone would like to give us to be able to get those off of the road. We don't have the cars or vans in our budget. We do have 4 buses in the operational budget, though, for an estimated cost of $600,000. So we have 21 buses in our fleet of buses which exceed the 15-year replacement cycle for the life of a bus.
How many buses do we have?
Taylor, you,
I think we're 53, I think.
so maintenance and operation needs, again, the middle school, which is commonly is referred to as the new school, was built in 2003. The high school was 5475 in 2003. Hopefully this coming summer, we'll be working on some major improvements to the CTE wing and addressing the water supply issue so that we can separate the middle school and high school. So we do have those projects going. But I think it's important to note that the work that is being done is minimal in terms of what the average public person is going to see. It's going to be pipes for plumbing and electrical for plugging and technology, but it's going to look the same. I mean, and I think our architect, I don't know that he put pen to paper, but he made a comment that you need another $25 million to be able to change the learning environment. So,
The design of the learning environment, not specifically. And I think when we say technology, we're not talking about frills of technology. We're talking about 21st century receptacles, plugins. When you have 2 receptacles in a classroom, 2 of them are automatically going to go to the teacher for the technology needs to be able to do whole group, small group, whatever. And then Chromebooks for all the students. Even take half the students away from it who don't need to plug in. So I just think it's important to note that this isn't a frills type of reference to technology. It's what students deserve to have in terms of lighting and HVAC, and, to even get it to that point. So I think that's important to note.
Rockfish was constructed in 1999. The HVAC is in critical need of being replaced, and the controls need to be upgraded over there as well. That's the original equipment that is still there from 1999. Tie River was constructed in 95. We have replaced the HVAC and the controls there, so they should be in good shape for a while. Current price of propane as of January 9th was $157.9 per gallon. School safety measures, they do come at a cost. We do apply for the school safety and security equipment grants every year, but we're not always awarded that. They have a pot of money, and depending on who else applies and what they apply for and how much money is left in the pot, they have a matrix in terms of how they award those funds. We don't always qualify based on availability. So the things that we have is that we have a number of security cameras across the division. Some of them were put in prior to 2015, which would mean that they need to be upgraded. especially as we're using more sophisticated technology, we're finding that some of our cameras aren't compatible. So we want to make sure that we don't have areas that are not being monitored to the degree that they should be. So we do need to have a line item that we can upgrade those as time goes on. We do have the license for the Zero Eyes in the budget for the coming year. We have remote entry access points at most of our exterior doors. There's still a few that need those, so we'll be trying to write a grant to get those last ones covered. Anti-ballistic window film. We've done most of the ground floor windows. There are still a few areas that we do need to address still, but that will also be an item in our security grant. Two-way emergency radios. It's a continuing need to make sure that we can be in communication with emergency and first responders as they are on our facilities. Go bags, we want to make sure that all of our schools have access to go bags, that if there is an emergency, they can grab it and run to be able to address an emergency on the go, should it come to pass. Metal detectors, we were fortunate enough to be able to buy all of those with a grant at no cost to the county. It was all grant funded, and we have those in all of our buildings now. Safety bollards, we have some in place. We still have identified areas that we've not been able to get those bollards in place, and so that still needs to be in our capital plan to get done. And then the new one that we're still working on, trying to make sure that we have all of the skills and resources to be able to combat cybersecurity issues. To make sure that we have the firewalls in place and that our staff is cognizant of what dangers are out there so that we can address those. And again, our budget seems to be redundant in the fact that 80% of our budget is tied to personnel, so a lot of our budget is tied to personnel costs with the 3% raise, with health insurance costs, and with positions. But it is the area that has the most impact on children, and we are a people business. We have positions that we're not able to fill, that some of them are filled by long-term subs, some of them have just not been filled. So we'll be looking at what we can do with the staff that we have to be creative so that we have the maximum benefit. Things could look a little different. Folks could be doing some different responsibilities, but we'll be looking at that so that we're making sure that we're good stewards of the resources we have. The need for an elementary assistant principal, I think that has become crystal clear to us that we do need the additional support at the ground level where the kids are. So that is on our budget again. I know it's been cut a couple of times and it's been added a couple of times. It just isn't going to work not to have it.
I think what should be added to that is we have spent some time being creative about, taking unfilled vacancies, and we have temporarily placed someone to serve in that role currently, and almost immediately feedback from teachers was, upon that taking place, you knew immediately there was extra help. So I think not only just supervision, but this is the behavioral supports that we have. It is getting harder and harder to find counselors, specific behavior certified individuals, psychologists, all those individuals. These administrators more frequently provide that support to be able to work with students directly and collaborate with the current counselors that are there. So it's not just a disciplinarian. This is the individual who's working directly with students to be able to support teachers, being able to use data, being able to help support teachers in the classroom. So it's not as simple, I think, as we sometimes think. I think we tried sharing an AP at the elementary levels, and it is very clear that that does not work out in the current environment and the needs of schools, not specific to our schools, but schools in general. So I think that that's important to point out. Specifically, when you take a look at the difference in spending and anticipated spending on per pupil, it's significantly increasing in SPED populations, in the needs, in the increasing numbers of our SPED population, but the needs of the SPED population. Those numbers are going up, which drives the overall cost going up. In addition to, it costs more to do business. And I think that that's across the board. It doesn't matter what business you're in, it costs more. And we're educating children and supporting them and setting them up for the rest of their lives.
And I guess that's it. Do you have any questions of me?
Shannon,
Okay, thank you.
for presenting it in a way that those of us who are not as financial savvy can understand. You do an amazing job. Thank you very, very much. Gifted.
All right, so if there's no questions from us, I can go ahead and open the public hearing on the proposed 25-26 operational budget, but I need a motion.
I move that we open the public hearing for the proposed budget for 25-26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed or abstaining, so we have the public hearing is now open.
What's our advertised time for that?
I think
Was
it
it
was
5?
now,
Was it-
5
It was
o'clock.
5, okay,
5
good.
o'clock, yeah.
As long as it wasn't 6.
No, it was
No, our
not.
normal meeting is at
Okay.
6, so we're
All right.
based on our typical months. Nobody? Okay, so I'll be happy to let anybody who wants to give their 2 cents on the budget or right now, you can, okay. All right, then, having no input,
I move that we close the public hearing for the proposed budget.
thank you.
I'll second. Go ahead.
All in favor?
Aye.
I got 4 seconds on that one, so that's good. It was 4 seconds long, and I got 4 seconds on the motion. Yeah, I think we need to adjourn now.
So I make a motion that we adjourn the public hearing and the budget presentation for 25-26.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, well, the budget work session is now adjourned, but hold on to your hats, boys and girls, in 5 minutes. If anybody needs to take a break.
Yep.
Um,
Mike said he needs some time to.
Yeah,
switch
we're gonna go into the regular school board meeting at 6 o'clock, so we have 5 minutes.
Thanks to those who've been hanging with us for the last hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.